Hey everyone, this is Dacia Jones with EIEIO in Expeditions in Education. I am a classroom teacher, a STEM educator, and a road warrior. My husband and I travel around the country providing virtual experiences, STEM events, coaching, and much more to students, teachers, parents, and schools. I'm so excited to be here today presenting at the Educators to Educators Conference. This presentation is going to cross several themes: technology, back to school, and self-care for students. And as you can see right now, we are heading on a journey. So let's go. Let's spend some time together talking about the value of virtual experiences for our students, even while we are back in the classroom face-to-face. We know that there's an inequity of technology and funding for many schools and districts, but you can create quality experiences for your students, and today I'm going to show you how by taking you on one of my adventures and then providing details on how you can create it for yourself. As a first-year teacher, I wanted the best for my students, and I had no idea that there would be obstacles in my way. When I taught something in the classroom, I then searched for materials and opportunities for my students to expand the content. But unfortunately, there were no materials or opportunities. We were a Title I school with basic supplies, but that was it. Most of my students had never been out of the small community they lived in. I knew that if I were to help them enlarge their territory, I had to figure it out on my own. So I created my own virtual field trips, no technology involved. One of our first virtual adventures was to China. My assistant Kim put black construction paper on the bus windows and drove them around several times until the kids thought we had gone far enough. They got off the bus with their suitcases and arrived at our classroom door. I took their paper passports and invited them in. Our classroom had been set up like an airplane. Students were directed to their seats by fifth grade flight attendants. They sat down and buckled their jump rope seat belts. In front of them, on the back of the chairs, was a flyer and a barf bag. You see, this was going to be a realistic trip. Attendants served water and a cookie during the flight, and my wonderful classroom parents had hung shower curtains from the ceiling, so it looked like they were inside the plane. While inside, they watched an in-flight movie on China. When we arrived, the curtains were pulled back and my classroom had been transformed into China. Until this day, those students still reach out to me about how much those virtual experiences changed their lives. Fast forward 25 years. You would think that things had changed a lot, but there are still students who have never traveled far from their homes. It is up to us to create virtual experiences in the classroom that will change their lives and open up the world to them. So let's go. Exploration gives us the sense that anything is possible. Exploration leads to knowledge and understanding and means that you make the world a better place as you explore. People have always tried to leave the world a better place for future generations, and exploration and virtual experiences is one way we can do that. Today we'll be exploring the Great Smoky Mountains. We will find cascading waterfalls, roaming wildlife, and a view that stretches out over 500,000 acres. During today's adventure, we will learn more about a people, an event, and a place that changed history. But before we set out on this adventure, take a few minutes to clear your mind. John Muir, the famous naturalist, says, "In every walk with nature, one receives far more than he seeks." And as we explore nature today, I want you to focus on what you see. During these virtual experiences, I like to focus on 3 destinations, which include the people, the events, and a place. During this journey, we're going to visit with the Cherokee people, explore the CCC, and visit Cades Cove. First, create a travel itinerary. Let your students know ahead of time where they will be going and what they'll learn, just like you would with a real adventure. Map out your travel plans and prepare for the unexpected. Make the big announcement. Hey kids, we're going to the Great Smoky Mountains next week. There are a few books on the back table that you might want to look at before we go, and make sure to check out the weather conditions for your packing list. Let kids make their own passports. Talk to them about how adventures are taken and what they need to do to prepare for them. Your checklist will include choosing an experience for them, connecting your standards. Make sure that the kids can see what they can be if they learn from you. Connect everything to the real world and end with a challenge. So the day of the trip is here. Let's go to the Smoky Mountains. We want to make sure that you include people and places and events, and also provide essential or guiding questions that can drive their learning. You can call them points of interest or travel stops, just like travel companies do in their brochures. Our first stop is a visit with the Cherokee people in Cherokee, North Carolina. Make sure that you provide fun and interesting photos that you take during the adventure or that you find online. While in Cherokee, everyone was following the mask up mandate. Check out what we learned about the Cherokee while we were there. The Cherokee Indians are the largest tribe in the United States. The name Cherokee comes from a Muskogean word that means speakers of another language. The Cherokee lived in wattle and dab homes. This was a material traditionally used in building walls. It consisted of a network of interwoven sticks and twigs that were covered with mud or clay. These homes were framed with tree logs and then covered with mud and grass to fill in the walls. The roofs were made of thatch or bark. The Cherokee farmed, hunted, and gathered. They were able to grow corn, squash, and beans, and they hunted deer, rabbits, turkey, and sometimes even bears. The Cherokee traveled by foot or by canoe. They traveled rivers and streams between their villages. They made their canoes by hollowing out large tree logs. The Cherokee were also a religious people who believed in spirits. One of their celebrations was called the Green Corn Ceremony, which thanked the spirits for their harvest of corn. Trail of Tears was the Cherokee name for what the Americans called the Indian removal. During the 1800s, the U.S. government created an Indian territory in Oklahoma and told all of the eastern Native American tribes that they had to go live there. Some tribes willingly agreed to do this, but other tribes didn't want to go, and the American Army forced them. It was a very dark time in our history. The Cherokee tribe was one of the largest eastern tribes, and they didn't want to leave their homeland. The Cherokees were also peaceful allies of the Americans, so they asked the Supreme Court for help. The judges decided the Cherokee Indians could stay in their homes, but the president, Andrew Jackson, sent the army to march the Cherokees to Oklahoma anyway. They weren't prepared for the journey, and it was wintertime. Thousands of Cherokee Indians died on the Trail of Tears. Many Native Americans from other tribes died too. You can learn more about the Cherokee and the Trail of Tears at Cherokee's outdoor drama, Unto These Hills. Unto These Hills drama is the tragic and triumphant story of the Cherokee that traces back to the years before the heartbreak of the Trail of Tears to the present day. Despite this dark and terrible episode in the lives of the Cherokee, the ending of the play shows that the Cherokee people are people whose spiritual fortitude and human courage will never be broken. The Cherokee practiced the balance of life, partly through the preservation of their crafts and culture. These Cherokee craft traditions are taught to each new generation. This balance between old and new is found in Cherokee schools and in community workshops.
Now, when these ladies make their pottery, they use native clay, which is found along the river banks in this area just under the top. They use two different methods when they make their pottery. First would be the ball method, which you see here. That was used to make the smaller pieces of pottery that you can see. What they'll do is they'll start off with a small ball of clay, using their thumb and forefinger, and they'll work it out to the desired shape that they want. Second method would have been the foil method. Now this was used for making your larger pottery that you can see. Alright, what they'll do is they'll start with a small flat disc here, well not small, about average size. Take your foils, stack them one on top of the other. Once you have that done, you can smooth this out by hand. Once you have that, you sit it out in the sun until it became firm enough to work with. Now we take a metal tool, go along the inside to get the desired thickness that you want. Now before the metal tool, we would have used a seashell. Now once you wanted to put your designs on your pottery, you could use a wooden paddle with the designs already carved into it, and you would press that along with your pottery to get your design. We would also carve into a deer's antler also. Use the seashell once again for the natural grooves that it has in it, sharpened stick, or carved out wood not possible by pottery. Do you have any questions?
Young Cherokee have the opportunity to learn the art of Cherokee basket weaving, pottery, beadwork, wood carving, and other traditional Cherokee crafts. As you plan each part of your adventure, make sure that what you share connects to your standards. Making a real-world connection is the best way to solidify learning. Always include stories. After your adventure, allow students to choose books that further their interest. Our next place is an event. What event made your virtual experience more important? For this journey to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, I chose the Civilian Conservation Corps, which helps tell the story of the Great Smoky Mountains. The Civilian Conservation Corps, or CCC, was a work relief program that gave millions of young men employment on environmental projects during the Great Depression. If you love the outdoors like I do, you will agree that this was one of the most successful of Roosevelt's New Deal programs. The CCC planted more than 3 billion trees and constructed trails and shelters in more than 800 parks nationwide, and it was only around for 9 years. The CCC helped to shape the modern national and state park systems we enjoy today. Roosevelt started the CCC to address two problems: reforestation of the nation's timber resources and unemployment during the Great Depression. There were roughly 22 CCC camps in the Great Smoky Mountains, and as many as 4,000 men worked in these camps, reforesting the area and building fire towers and fire roads. So what else do we know about the CCC? It was a voluntary public work relief program that operated from 1933 to 1942. The men ages 18 to 25 had to be unemployed and unmarried to qualify for the program. And we know that most of them were between the ages of 18 and 20. As we traveled through the Smoky Mountains, we saw some remains: a chimney, a drinking fountain, a fire hydrant, a signboard, and many other artifacts. And it showed what would have happened if the CC camps had not been there. Again, tying all of this to your standards is vital for learning, and it gives your administrators an opportunity to see how you're teaching the state standards in engaging ways. So I know for planning, a lot of times we take our standards first, and then we see what we can create around them. I am completely different. I choose experiences. I take surveys from my students and then ask them, what do they want to learn? When I find this out, I start creating these virtual experiences, and then I tie my standards. It works every time. And don't forget the stories. Please don't forget the stories. Starting a book a month ahead of time before they even show up at your adventure can be great to get kids excited. So our last stop on this journey is a place. Let's recap. We have been to see a people. We have learned about an event. And now we're going to a place. I spent many summers at Cades Cove growing up. I like to choose places that are interesting to me also. Let's look about the science you can find at Cades Cove. We had a great time at Cades Cove. Did you know that Cades Cove is one of the most visited areas in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park? We found historic cabins and churches. We saw a grist mill and a cantilever barn, and we were very lucky to find a wide variety of animals. So let's talk about those first. On July 7, 1934, the Assistant Chief Ranger of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park sent a message to his employees requesting a census or a count of the park's wildlife populations. According to the 1934 Wildlife Report, this park contained approximately 100 black bears. The number of white-tailed deer was estimated at only 18. Today, the Smokies is home to an estimated 1,600 black bears. Let me break it down for you. That is 2 bears for every square mile. And as far as white-tailed deer go, our visit to Cades Cove today showed us that they were alive and doing well. The 1934 report put the wild turkey population at 315. Today, turkeys are a common sight in the Smokies. We found quite a few hanging around in the fields and playing at a local campground. We also saw some amazing great blue heron in the rivers and streams throughout the park. They looked hungry, but we didn't see them find their lunch. Maybe next time. The National Park Service also reintroduced peregrine falcons to the Smokies after they disappeared in 1943. So park managers became parents. They began raising and releasing young peregrines in the park. They call this process hacking. All of the park's wildlife reintroduction projects over the last 2 decades have started out as experiments to decide if the species is compatible with the park's natural and human landscape. Well, we can tell you we think they are compatible. On a good day, you can see all of the above animals in Cades Cove. It is 11 miles of untouched land that takes you back in time. So as we look at the content standards again, you'll notice this time we're talking about science. We want to make sure that within an adventure, we find as many connections as possible so students can understand that content lies in a story and not just in a textbook. Another great area for you to add the literacy in here. You can also turn this into readers' theater. Kids can create puppet shows, podcasts, making sure that everything is tied to a story. As we come to the end of our adventure, I want to talk to you about creating a task. So creating a STEM task for them to solve helps them make a connection between the past, the present, and the future. I created this one based on the synchronous fireflies found in the Great Smoky Mountains. It gives our students an opportunity to use the engineering design process to solve a real-world problem. Now, you can't have a great adventure without a great souvenir, so I always like to add one into the mix. Let's take a look at what we can do with our students. So I have just collected some recyclable materials I found around the house. and some little tea lights that are battery operated. Let's see if I can get this one to turn on. So wouldn't it be cool if kids could replicate a firefly that is found in the Smoky Mountains? So they can use materials that you find, scissors, some type of fastener, and create this souvenir that they can take home with them or put into their scrapbook. I think it's a cool idea. Let's keep going. Making a travel log is going to be very important because you want kids to know that what they see and learn during this event, they should be sketching, drawing, and taking notes. We want them to have a memorable adventure. Put some postcards around the room or have kids create their own so they can send them home after the adventure. How about brainstorming some careers that they discovered on the adventure? They can add these to the travel log. You can also search on YouTube for short videos of people that have the jobs that you talked about during the adventure. I hope that you had fun on our adventure today. Now it's your turn. First of all, choose your destination. Remember, you aren't hindered by cost or distance. The world is at your fingertips. Research 3 places that will engage your students. I use the concept of a people, an event, and a place. You can use that or create your own template. Connect, connect, connect your standards. Remember, you want administration buy-in. Tie in literacy and the arts. Then, literally, have the students create a packing list for the adventure. They don't have to bring the items, but having them critically think through what they will need is an important skill to have. And maybe after creating their lists, they can discuss what they're bringing with their classmates. I would also suggest that you create a web page where you can list your virtual experiences and ask students to provide feedback on their journey. A virtual field trip advisor, if you will. This gives students the opportunity to learn about media bias and practice their descriptive language skills. And if you talk other teachers into creating virtual experiences, you could have links to your decks, videos, lesson plans, etc., and share the load of creating them yourself. I would like to thank all of the sources that we were able to use today. And I would also like to thank Educators to Educators for giving me this opportunity. Please feel free to reach out to me with any questions. You can find out more about our work at daciajones.com and expeditionsineducation.org. My husband and I run the National Parks Expedition Challenge, and you can find free virtual experiences on our website. We would also like to invite you to follow us on social media at Dacia92. This summer, we're hosting 30 educators in Acadia National Park for STEAM in the Park. These summer camps will allow educators to connect, collaborate, and create solutions to challenges that are found in the national parks. This summer, we're following the invasive green crab species. So follow us at hashtag STEAM in the Park on July 16th through 19th and find out how you can join us on our next adventure. So, what are you waiting for? Get your room set up, pull out a tent if you need to, shine a little light on the whole situation, and pack your suitcase. I can't wait to see what you create with Engaging the World virtual experiences. Until next time, this is Dacia Jones. Have a great day.